Okay. All right, everybody. We're excited to have for this month's talk, the ICPSR Research Data Ecosystem talk by Jeanette Jackson and Trisha Martinez. So they're going to discuss the Inter-university Consortium for Political and Social Research Research Data Ecosystem. So just to do some introductions here. So Jeanette Jackson, she's the managing director of the Research Data Ecosystem. That's funded by a $38 million National Science Foundation mid-scale infrastructure grant. So it's located at the ICPSR at the University of Michigan. So prior to this role, she was the managing director of the inaugural Interdisciplinary Research Methods Hub located at the Institute for Social Research, which included the construction of a high-tech research space. The Home Lab, she has a passion for creating positive and productive organizational culture and loves that she can do this work in a mission-driven academic environment. She received her MBA from the University of Michigan Ross School of Business and her undergraduate degree in economics from Smith College. And joining her will be Trisha Martinez, the Chief Technology Officer for the ICPSR at the University of Michigan. Her team is building the recently funded NSF Research Data Ecosystem platform. And so Trisha is a tech leader with 20 plus years of award-winning experience in creating software platforms to scale memorable customer experience. And she has worked with Fortune 50 companies, including Ford, Disney, and Procter & Gamble, as well as small to medium-sized businesses. And she's known for leading engineering teams and solving complex problems. And she loves building stuff, breaking stuff, and then building even better stuff. So with that, they will be talking about the ICPSR RDE. And so the ICPSR just provides leadership and training in data access, curation, and methods for analysis for the social science research community, and is, as we said, building the current RDE that is funded by NSF. The goal, I think, of the RDE is to make research data accessible, to broaden participation in the frontiers of scientific research. And so it will accomplish this goal by modernizing existing software platforms so that it supports the entire research life cycle with an enhanced user experience to increase the ability of researchers to safely and securely access, connect, store, and manipulate data. And so this presentation will present some of the challenges and the experiences and implementation of the RDE, along with some details about implementation, access, and usage. So with that, Jeanette and Trisha, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. We're very happy to be here and share this with you. I'm going to just share my screen. We are very open to questions along the way. I don't know if we're going to address exactly what you all are interested in, but feel free to ask us what you're interested in as we go. So what we'll do is kind of an overview of what this project is to give you a little bit, more to anchor on, and then we can have a conversation or answer any questions. All right, I am going to share my screen. Let's see, I think it's this one. Okay. Can you see it? Is the PowerPoint showing up?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, because sometimes I'm not sure what I've got on the screen. Okay, so thank you for that nice introduction. I think we can move right on to the next slide here. So the problem that we're really seeking to solve with this project is that social science data infrastructure does not really support multiple data types used in current and emerging research. So as you think about the types of data that are now coming in, it's much broader than it used to be. And like from the social sciences perspective, we're very used to, survey data. But when it comes to things like social media data or video data or geospatial data, we don't really have those systems in place yet. So we wrote a grant to the NSF. It's a mid-scale infrastructure project. Trisha and I have been on this journey for about 3 years now. It took a while to land. And it is the largest social and behavioral science grant ever awarded by the NSF. And really, it's to make it easier for everybody to social science researchers and more, really. We broadened our audience base to find, manage, connect, and share their data. So really, there are two pieces of this. One is modernizing the software platform. If you can imagine, ICPSR has been in the business of social science archives for over 60 years. We have, what is it, Trisha, 30 archives that are bespoke. So we can't hear you, Trisha, if you're talking.
I think there's 32, but yeah, very close.
So when you do the mapping, it looks like a giant spaghetti monster. And what we need is a coherent system that's kind of all together in one place. I mean, I'm probably saying something that many of you know very well is a challenge. So we're modernizing the platform while we're keeping the platform running because people still need to work with data. We are also building tools that will support researchers across the research lifecycle. So it's sort of like flying the plane, rebuilding it, and then adding some bells and whistles on top. The goal is that in the future, a researcher will be able to have a fantastic, we hope, this is what we're working towards, user experience, where they can access, analyze, and disseminate data using a single platform, not different experiences in the different archives. We are modernizing our technology, and I'll, Tricia, maybe you'd like to speak a little bit to that, because I think this group might appreciate it.
Well, when I came in, we had just moved to a repository that's backed by librarians. We had been using basically niche software to solve our everyday problems, and we were having trouble scaling it, and we were having trouble running it, and we're going back to using kind of well-proven, hardened products to build our platform. And in the meantime, we're also breaking up a lot of the logic so that it's independently deployable instead of one big monolith that we're deploying. So we're using some microservices, some what we call micro libraries. It depends on the topic, but it's a very pragmatic approach to the new platform for all of our data and all of our websites.
So that's a start. I don't know if there are questions in the chat here. No. Yes, no. Hold on.
I don't see any questions. Right
Okay, yeah. So again, we are seeking to make it possible for people to access different types of data, which relates to, how we're creating a more flexible data model that the system can work with. And ultimately, we're building a search that will show related materials based on standardized metadata to help uncover connections that maybe hadn't been able to be uncovered before. So just a quick overview of the types of tools that we are also building to support researchers across the research lifecycle. We have the goal of achieving fair data standards. So that's findable, interoperable, accessible, reproducible with all of our tools. So in the collecting phase, we have a product that we're calling the Research Document Registry. And that is a place where a researcher can deposit their pre-registration, consents, data management plan. And we're in the very early stages of this project. We're about, 8 months in. So we are still conceptualizing exactly what this is going to look like, because it is based on input from researchers. So based on input from the users. And Tricia, just jump in if you want to add anything at any point in time. Oh, you're muted again.
Sorry about that. One of the things that is really interesting about this project is that we basically started a UX team at ICPSR. We didn't have very many design resources prior to starting this team, and we're finally getting to the point where I was ecstatic to hear our executive director say that we really needed to talk to end users outside of ICPSR to figure out what it is that we should build and what would meet their needs, because we have a tendency to think organizationally and internally. And so that's what this new design team has been doing it. They've been going out and talking to a broad swath of users outside of the University of Michigan, in addition to outside of ICPSR. So, and that's been opening our eyes quite a bit. We are learning quite a bit, which is good, because the ultimate success for this is adoption, right? So if we get something people will adopt, then I'll be happy.
Okay, sorry, I'm a little twitchy with my PowerPoint slides here. Another tool that we are creating is one we're calling Turbo Curator. And this is going to enable researchers to apply standardized metadata to their data sets. So, and it's going to be used using what we're calling the best aspects of artificial intelligence and human curation. So there's always going to be a human in the loop in this with the researcher and their data. And we're currently working with, some of you may know HV Jagadish and his graduate student to do some of this AI work around looking at our variables database and making it easier for people to actually apply this metadata. Because ultimately, what's super special about the data at ICPSR is that it does have all this metadata. That we have over, 6 million variables or something like that. So we see this as something that's going to both, it's going to help the researcher who wants to deposit their material, their data at ICPSR, or if they want to take it someplace else, we're making it possible. We're going to make it possible for them to apply their metadata and take their data and metadata someplace else. With the archival part of the equation, we're making it possible to ingest and work with the particular new data types for us, which is geospatial data and video data. And video data is huge and is going to require a lot more work in the cloud than we're able to do right now. We also are creating a tool that we're currently calling a researcher passport, which essentially captures the credentials of the person who wishes to access the data. It's a streamlined process for applying to restricted data. So it'll be pulling from ORCID and LinkedIn and allow us to capture also the trainings that you've had. So again, the credentialing system, and it's going to be designed to be used at ICPSR. And if other institutions feel like that has enough credibility for them, they can port it, right? They can download it and take it to that institution. That was an interesting decision we had to make along the way, which we're happy to share more of later if you want. So for the analyze phase, we have two pieces that we see in that space. One is something that's called StatSnap, which is essentially exploring data in a very user-friendly, easy way on the ICPSR website. So that you can see cross tabs and frequencies and things like that, so that you can quickly say, is this a data set I want to be able to use? We are also setting up a cloud-based research environment so that you don't have to come on-prem to do work with restricted data. You should be able to do that in the cloud. And Trisha, I don't know, do you want to add something to that? You're muted again.
Currently, this is simply a data enclave a virtual data enclave on VMware, where we supply the software. And we're trying to move it to a cloud-based data enclave instead. So it's very interesting. And I think that the costs versus benefits of on-prem versus cloud are going to be very interesting as we move forward with that particular project. So,
okay. And then, excuse me, finally, when we get into the dissemination phase, the goal is that people can come and get their instant DOI, which is the digital object identifier, and the fact that they've been able to apply standardized metadata should make it easier for them to send it wherever they need to send their data, work with journals, etc. So we see this as making data fair through increased access to data sets, easier to find and analyze, and will contain everything that is needed to reproduce a study. That's the goal. We're creating a repository for the research documentation so that it's a place where you can actually create and store standardized, citable, and searchable research documentation. And the application of standardized metadata. We see those as three key components to making data fair. In terms of challenges and opportunities, there are many on both, and usually the challenge comes with an opportunity as well. Our biggest challenge is hiring software engineers. They're in high demand. We pay academic salaries. We need specific skills and experiences. I don't know, Tricia, do you want to maybe speak a little bit to that one?
Yes, so if you have any software engineer friends, we're looking for full stack engineers. We use Java on the back end. We also use Python, and we use React and Node on our front end. We're also really looking for a leader for our data engineering team. And those data engineers are introducing things like Apache Airflow, Apache NiFi, some standard tools to do pipelines for data transformations, and teaching how many people does Rejuda have now? At least 30.
Yeah.
Person curation team, more data engineering techniques to become more efficient with their time. So we're trying to scale the curation of it with our data engineering team, and I'm seriously looking for a leader there. I'm also looking for a leader in the DevOps area, which is our operations area that just moved to Kubernetes, for hosting all of the new stuff that we write. We've been on AWS for a long time, so a lot of people who join us have used AWS before. That's usually not a problem. But those are the kinds of things that we're looking for. And if you know anybody, by all means, give them my email, tell them to call me.
I also put the link to the jobs posting in the chat. Just a note, we've been rewriting these so that we have the option remote hybrid in the title, and HR has gotten things a little mixed up in that there's some double postings that's being fixed. But instead of waiting for perfect, we wanted to make sure that we got it out to those of you, and please feel free to share it widely. And we would really appreciate it. So the user experience driving product creation, like Tricia was saying, that has been wonderful, absolutely wonderful, because it is true that the people who wrote the grant really believe that it was all those things are the right things to do. And as we've gone out and talked to researchers, not just in ICPSR, but across the world, we have shifted the focus on some of our products to reflect what they need. So I can give the example of StatSnap. It started with an online statistical analysis tool, but the researchers told us they didn't need another tool. They didn't want that on the site. They wanted to quickly see what data was available that would work for their research. So we shifted course, which NSF and our leadership sees as very positive, and it's really kind of building the muscle of our organization to pay attention to what the researchers need and have it be a broader, like getting more confidence in the feedback of what people need as opposed to one person. The downside of that is, like, culturally, that's not the way that we're used to doing business here at ICPSR. So we've had to navigate some people who were very anxious about it and not comfortable and feeling like their voices weren't heard. even though they were part of the user experience design process, they were used to driving the train, and now the data is driving the train. So there's that. The organizational change work that's been going on, we went from 14 people in the software operation to we're over 50 now, I think, Tricia.
Yep.
Yeah. And that requires process changes of all types. So as you can imagine, it's just, there's been a lot of change that we've needed to navigate. The existing organizational processes did not work for an organization of this size. We now have 5 teams up and running. And on the teams, we have, devs, designers, DevOps, we have a product owner. They're running on an agile basis. We are communicating all the time. And we've got like our product increment planning this week so we can make sure we know what the dependencies are between the teams. This is not how things were a year ago. So it's just been tremendous organizational change. Anything you want to add to that, Tricia?
No, just growth is a different kind of challenge than a lot of organizational challenges. So, and a lot of it is how do you bring everybody who started there at the organization when it was small with you along the journey, so that they can understand where we are in another 6 months when we have another team, right? And in another 6 months when other things have changed. So
exactly. So there are different ways that you can connect with us. Always feel you can reach out to Tricia or me. We would really love to have people who are interested in being, users and participating and giving us feedback. So, please let us know. And then I think I'll stop sharing and we can open up the floor for any questions.
Okay, well, I see some questions that are currently in the notes doc that folks have added. So I think one of them here is, does the research document registry link or accept the funding agency data management plans that's developed with the DM tools and things like that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Sure. So does the research document registry, does it link or accept, I think, funding agency data management plans, some of the ones that are used with like DM tools and things like that?
yeah, so the original vision of this was that it would use some of the data management tools out there that already exist and capture that as far as data management plans are concerned. Data use agreements, we don't have, or at least we didn't find a whole lot of existing packages out there that create them for you. So that might be more of a build for us than the data management plan. But yeah, we're trying to leverage everything that everybody else has built first before we add anything of our own. So
I see a question that says, if you're dealing with regulated data, how are you integrating cybersecurity? So we have a data security officer and team. And I don't know, Tricia, if there's specifics you think would be helpful here.
So we also follow NIST. We actually follow FSMA regulations. I'm not familiar with CMMC, but we're on NIST 800. And we actually, what we did was we went and hired a privacy officer. And we've got a couple more people on his team now to help us do with ATOs, which is authority to operate for various federal agencies. And basically, once you put that infrastructure on an ATO, everything you put in that system has to comply with those controls. So for the most part, all of our data is being held with on FSMA moderate security guidelines. So a little bit of the stuff that we have that's not FSMA moderate, we are working with ARC, which is another computing facility at the University of Michigan. They have a very secure environment. It just doesn't go quite as far as FSMA moderate. So maybe it's a FSMA low kind of environment. But I'd love to know more about the CMMC name.
Yeah, CMMC is new controls for COI data, which is, or CUI data.
Oh, CUI, okay. Yeah, so our friends at ARC use CUI as their standard. So ours is a little bit more rigorous than that. Because we've got things that are classified FSMA moderate by the federal government. FSMA moderate is akin to HIPAA, for those who are familiar with the health portions of things. They're not exactly the same, but they're kind of both at a certain level of rigorous, I would say.
Okay. Another question here is, are you going to create metadata crosswalks between different disciplines, especially those which may have a use of the same terms, but with different definitions?
So what we're doing with the metadata, we have a metadata and preservation unit here at ICPSR, and they are looking at all of the different standards for the different types of data that are being used, sort of universally, and those will become part of that metadata application process.
Okay. Next, another question is, will the tools being developed be open source?
Yes, they are open source. I always put the caveat of we have to make sure that they don't connect to any of our restricted data. And some of them are really specific to ICPSR. So like the StatSnap tool is more specific to our system, our internal system, than the Turbo Curator tool, which can be used for any data set.
Right. And when we say open source, we are intending to deposit the code in an open source repository. But as of right now, for this moment, we're not funded to have open source like maintenance or community building, or some of those things that you see in larger open source projects. So depends on what you mean by open source.
Okay. Let's see. Probably on a related note is, are you considering providing API access to some of the services?
Yes. And yes, some of those are already under development, the APIs. Did anybody have something more specific about that?
I don't think so. I guess I would ask is, what protocol are you considering? Are you just looking at REST?
Yeah, we're trying to stick to RESTful services. Then there's also, we're trying to figure out how to hook up pipelines, and we haven't figured this out yet, with Apache Airflow to do some batch processing as well. So since RESTful is typically a single transaction process.
Okay. Let's see. So here's another question is, are you familiar with Globus?
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the product person there is on my technical advisory team.
I think someone was just pointing out that it has an auth that also includes ORCID ID, and it might help with access for restricted data.
Yep. Yep, we're also working with in common federation for the researcher passport.
Okay, so is that going to be CI login? Is that what you're
Yeah.
looking at? With the
Yeah.
comments? All right, here's another question is, what sort of cloud support are you looking at? Is this only for a specific commercial cloud vendor, or are you looking at something more generic like virtual machines that could be deployed on OpenStack or some other cloud technology?
The university has where we're doing the development has contracts with the three big vendors in cloud, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. And we've also looked at things like cloud.gov. And we're trying to build something that is not, that could be switched across. But at first we might be a little bit more locked into AWS because that's where we've landed on and where we're building right now. So to the extent that some of their APIs are non-standard, we would have to rework that if we moved suppliers or moved cloud vendors.
Okay.
I also see that one of our technical advisors, Rachana Anantha Krishnan, is on this call. I believe that she's the one with Globus. So
Yeah.
mhm.
Hey, Janet, hi, Tricia.
Nice to see you.
Okay, I currently don't see any other questions that we've not addressed. I think there's been some comments, but yeah, I think that are there other questions that folks have?
I think there's one in here that wasn't actually answered yet. What is the standardized metadata that is being applied? And then further, good question. Every time repositories talk about standardized metadata, it's usually just the 15 DC elements, which are essentially administrative level metadata instead of subject or discipline metadata.
No, so I have to, I'm not an expert in metadata, but Tricia, and weigh in here. What we are looking at administrative level metadata and other metadata. So like for the internal side of things, and also for like data standards like Dublin Core and DDI and things like that.
Right, and we're also looking at some discipline specific ones. So like we got EKG data in a while back, and we found a standard for that the EKG industry seemed to have a good usage on, right? So we try to adopt the standard that seems to have the highest usage in a given discipline. And as we get new types of data in, we've built the schema to be extensible so that we can add those fields that are necessary for an EKG or a spectrograph or one of those other types of data that we haven't actually held before.
So are you looking at ontologies or schema.org?
Yeah.
So yes.
So schema.org is one of our sources. We're looking at, we never standardized our countries. So we're looking at ISO for, putting just simple country codes in. And the general rule is if we need an ontology or we need a schema, it's there's probably a good one already out there that we're going to use. But none of them cover the entire breadth of the type of data that we're talking about. So we'll wind up using several different ontologies to married together to include all the types of data.
Is this something that you're gonna kind of have a consultation or tool to help in the planning phase? Like, here's how you should collect your data to be able to have this metadata for later?
So for those who think about that before they collect their data, which would be awesome, I would say that our document registries and Turbo Curator are designed to help them think through how to collect data and a way to make it easier to disseminate once they have it. So, but you don't have to enter Turbo Curator before you gather the data. You can have the data already and then come in. So it's kind of a multiple entry point journey within Turbo Curator to help you apply the metadata.
I don't think this is exactly metadata, so I don't know if it fits into your platform. But we had a talk a few months ago about the NIH common data elements. So that's more like when you're doing a survey using common meters for measuring things. Does that fit in here anywhere?
Does that have to do with the White House memo that came out?
No.
No, it's
No.
okay.
So this is like if you need to judge people's sentiments towards something, to use 1 to 5, 1 to 10 with the what's that one called? Oh, I forget.
Yeah, for fair research. So we try to encourage that whenever we can. And to the extent that the data is in that format or is translatable to that format, we would prefer to save it in that type of format. But the reality of any repository is you get data in all shapes and sizes, right? So I like to tell the team that we've kind of got that default data set, which somebody referred to as like the 16 common data elements, right? We'll have that on everything. And some things will just be a blob attached to that because of the way it came in. It's not amenable to harmonize with any of the other ontologies. But we're hoping that a lot of them will be amenable to harmonizing with ontologies, and our PhD student with Jag is what he has me call him, and his last Jagavidish, I think. Anyways, he is working actually on algorithms that can take different metadata fields across the different studies that are deposited and harmonize them into one type of description instead of multiple descriptions. So there is some harmonization that we are trying to do. And when we do that, we will always pick a standard like this. I just looked up the CDE repository at NIH to try to commonize, on something that people have agreed to in a larger forum is always a better practice.
Do you have any sort of like project site or listserv for getting updates on this project? Like when pieces might roll out?
Yes, let me grab that. Hold on a second. See if I can get this in the chat.
Okay. So are there any other questions or comments from anybody on the call? Jeanette, Trisha, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or bring up related to the RDE or the ICPSR?
Thank you for having us, and please share our job postings far and wide.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's really a pleasure to talk to everybody.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming.